Hello, this is Jopheus, the keyboard player from Fluctus Quadratum, and as promised, I'm here to give you a relatively quick rundown of my studio equipment. So here is my Access Virus TI keyboard. This was the first synthesizer I acquired that gives you proper hands-on control of most important parameters. I got this several years ago, and here I'm using it as a MIDI controller from the Mtron Pro software you can see there on the computer screen for emulating Mellotron. I'll play some basic chords to demonstrate. So that's nice, I think. This is my Korg Trent Studio 61. I've got it covered at the moment because for this song I'm working on at the moment I'm not using it. This was actually my first synthesizer that I ever acquired. And here is a Vermona Retroverb Lancet. I use this with my Hammond B3, which is not in this room, for spring reverb, distortion, filtering, and other things that it does. Here I've got a Soundcraft mixing desk that just, well, mixes everything together so you can hear it without having to unplug and replug in lots of different equipment, very convenient. And here is what you might call the main section based on the fact that these are the two I use for my live rig. The first here on the top is the Moog 1 16 voice. This is my most recent acquisition and I am very excited to own and use one of these. Very powerful polyphonic analog synthesizer. I'm using the Lexicon PCM81 here to process the effects on it as a send-return loop from the mixing desk in stereo. So I can demonstrate a kind of pad sound that I've made on here and just kind of play with some of the things that it can do. You can hear it self-resonates. We can also engage unison mode, in which you play monophonically, but your voices are stacked. So you can go up to 48 oscillators on this if you're using all three per program, which is sounds very large, I think. So there we have that. Here then is my Korg Kronos 2 88. Very nice weighted keyboard for playing piano type sounds, Rhodes and the like. And here is a piano sound that I've modified. Again, going through the lexicon for effects. So that's that then, and here is an M-Audio Hammer 88 weighted 88 key MIDI controller. I got this before I had a weighted keyboard Kronos, and it was my only weighted keyboard. I now use it as a kind of sitting position piano, and for other things when I'm using this for piano I use this to control plugins on the computer. And over here we have some more things. This is Korg SV2 88 model without speakers. This is what I used to use live before I had the Kronos and in the studio. I still use it, connected via MIDI over USB, usually using the Kronos here as a controller. And it especially shines at strings, harpsichord, church organ, that kind of stuff. In my opinion, it does that a lot better than the Kronos. And over here, Behringer Poly D, This was my first analog synthesizer, so naturally I'm very fond of it. I think it sounds very, very nice, warm, fat, all those kinds of words would apply to this. Particularly because it doesn't have computer tuning stabilization, so it will just drift out of tune if given the chance. And you can layer 4 oscillators on it, which is very nice to make some quite big lead sounds, especially if you've got oscillators tuned at intervals as well as octaves. You can do some, yeah. And you also have the self-resonant filter on here. Again, lexicon for effects on that. So while we're here, we should just talk about the rack unit here. In the top, as I've already mentioned, there is the Lexicon PCM81. This is a stereo digital effects processor from the mid to late 90s. I love this thing. It does amazing sounding effects, and you can program it to do some quite in-depth things, such as resonators that correspond with the MIDI notes you're playing. At the moment, it's processing chorus and reverb, and a little bit of delay. But it is capable of a lot more. Also, I'm using it with the PCM80 dual algorithm card here. I have some other cards here, one for the Lexicon and some more for the Wavestation AD I'll talk about in a second, but first I want to talk about the Moog Siren here. This is a really nice analog synthesizer module. It's got 2 oscillators, the same self-resonant filter, as it's a module you need to play it over MIDI, same as everything else here. And it's got more of an aggressive sound to it, based on the Moog Minotaur, which is obviously based on the Taurus. It has that more aggressive sound, and it's really nice to have that as well, in addition to everything else. Here is the Korg Wavestation AD. Now I have changed the LCD panel on this because the old one was dying and you couldn't see it when it was on. I'm not using it at the moment, so it's switched off, but this does wave sequencing, vector synthesis. It's just a very interesting sound module, and I've got some more cards for it here that add more programs. Underneath it is what could be argued my most interesting digital synthesizer, the Yamaha FS1R. This is capable of per voice 16 operator FM, 8 voiced and 8 unvoiced operators, the voiced operators working like your standard operators like you may get in a DX7, the unvoiced producing variants of noise. The very special thing about it, however, is that it's the only synthesizer I know of that can use 4-man sequences, in which a clip of audio is recorded and converted to a sequence that it breaks down the frequency elements of. It then reconstructs those using said voiced and unvoiced operators, allowing you to create choir sounds, in which you can sweep the vowel being sung by said virtual choir in real time on the modulation wheel while you are playing. So, as well as a lot of other things, so very interesting. Again, not using it at the moment, so it's not switched on, but below it, we've got here the Motu MIDI Express XT. This is a MIDI interface, USB MIDI interface that I'm using so that the equipment I have that doesn't support MIDI over USB can talk to my computer over USB, so I get MIDI on everything, which is very nice. Below that is the Elasis data disk. This is used to store MIDI sysx files on originally floppy disks, 3.5 inch specifically, but this has been modified to use a more modern USB version. I use this to make sysx backups that aren't on the computer in case the computer is ever to fail. Below this is patch bay. This is just used to route things in and out of the rack. You can see I've got things plugged into there, including the Moog effects below. There is the ring modulator, the Big Briar version bearing the Bob Moog signature, and to the right the Moog Music Cluster Flux. There was not a Big Briar version of that produced. And those are wired in through the patch bay, and when I wish to use them, I can rewire the send return loop from the mixing desk to use those instead of the Lexicon. Obviously right now is using the Lexicon, as you have heard. Now, that's the rack. Last but not least, I have to show you this here, which is the Mini Moog Voyager XL. Now this synthesizer I love very much. It is similar to the Poly D, or more similar to the Moog Model D, which I sadly do not possess one of, but it has computer stabilization for tuning and program memory. However, it does drift out of tune occasionally. That's not fun. But I have it here set up with a sound that I've made. I should point out that the sounds you've heard on synthesizers so far I've also made from scratch using oscillator sync, which can sound very interesting, I find. Yeah, so that's it. This also bears the same resonant low-pass transistor ladder filter, but in stereo. So you have one for the left channel and one for the right channel. So that's all I have to say for this equipment for now. I hope you enjoyed that. And I hope that you have a good day. Thank you. I hope that you also enjoyed the video.